Welcome to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. Let me just adjust some settings here. All right, so we're having a very late start today. I wanted to bring some updates on the parole in place. I know a lot of people will not be able to join us at this time. However, they'll be able to see the recording. Now, uh, Texas has filed a stay, which was expected. I anticipated that they would. And the parole in place, which was supposed to, the filings were accepted as of August 19th. But unfortunately, a stay has been ordered by a judge in Texas, where even though they can accept the applications, they are not able to process them. So the applications will be accepted. It's just that they cannot make a decision on them. And this is really what is happening now. There is a stay issued by a court in Texas, and the stay is for 14 days. What will happen after the 14 days? We are not sure. Will the stay be extended? Who knows? We just have to monitor what's going on. So for 14 days, they will be able to accept the applications, but they cannot process them. Will you be able to get back a refund? Absolutely not. So the filing fee that is paid, if God forbid this does not go through and the parole in place is kicked outside the door, then you're not going to be able to get back your monies. That money is gone. And that's only if Texas becomes successful in their lawsuit to get rid of the parole in place. So right now there is a stay in place. So even though they're accepting the applications, they're not going to process them. So I just want people to bear this in mind. And this stay so far is only for a 14-day period, right? Now, they're not going to be granting any parole in place. They're continuing to accept the applications, and they will continue to schedule people for biometrics. So the application is still able to be submitted. However, there is no adjudication which can be made for 14 days. And it's 14 days from August 26th. So we're really running into that time where the 14 days is about to expire. Will it be extended? We just have to watch and see, right? Now, I have a little bit of concern because, of course, this is a brand new thing that came out. The whole purpose is to benefit spouses of US citizens only and also stepchildren of US citizens. And what I find is adult stepchildren are calling to determine whether or not they can benefit from the parole in place. The parole in place is mainly geared to immediate relatives. That is, people who are able to remain in the United States and adjust status. So, for children who are over 21, this does not benefit you, right? And it's so sad. I had a young lady called and she has three children. And she's not married because her stepfather told her not to marry. No, had he not done that, she would have been able to benefit from the parole in place because she would be the spouse of a US citizen. And I'm going to encourage ladies, Be careful how you're just having children and you're not bringing these children in a nuclear family. That's a family with a mother and a father, and you are not married. Marriage brings forth a lot of economic rights, which I don't think people are focusing on these days. But let's try and bring our children, especially in our community where we're often looked down on, that the father is not in the home. And we have other people looking at our family unit as if we do not know how to have a family unit. And I'm just going to try and try and bring these children in a stable family home, right? Let's try and have both parents in the home. It's not good for the kids. A single parent household, it is a struggle, and it's a very expensive household to raise a child in. Regardless of collecting child support, there's nothing like having that two income household. It helps, and it's two people who created this child. Let's have two people raising the child, right? And I looked at this so-called benefit to immigrants who have absolutely no proof of their entry. But what I find and what is of deep concern to me with this is for people who have a criminal history, you're not in a good position. And I wanted to get into that today, why you're not going to be in a good position where you have a criminal record, right? So if you have a felony and it is your intention to apply for parole in place, I can tell you off the bat, you're not going to get an approval. If you have a felony, and a felony is, they don't care whether it is a state crime, they don't care whether it is a federal crime. Once you have a felony, you will not benefit from parole in place. It could be one felony, it could be two, they don't care. Once you have a felony, you are not going to benefit. Most of these quote unquote benefits that they do provide to immigrants are discretionary, and you need a favorable exercise of discretion. And I would encourage any immigrant who is just coming, try and stay on the right hand side of the law. What is happening is when you have a criminal record and you have an immigration application to make, this does not put forth any favor on your behalf. You need a favorable exercise of discretion. And I'll tell you this, I have had people come to me and they've been arrested, criminal convictions like 20 times. Even though most of the cases were dismissed, some were not even triggering a negative impact on immigration. As a matter of discretion, because this is a discretionary relief, what's going to happen is your application will be denied just as a matter of discretion. And I remember distinctly a young man came to me and he wanted me to put in the application. And I told him no, because I just knew as a matter of discretion, it was going to get denied. He went to another attorney, he put in the application, and of course, it got denied. So your involvement, that numerous involvement that you may have, this does not bode well for you when you want an officer to exercise a favorable discretion on your behalf. So I'm just going to encourage you, especially if you know of new immigrants coming in, just encourage them to stay on the right-hand side of the law. They're going to be needing a benefit in the future. It does not bode well for them when they have this wide criminal history, right? All right, so let's look at the convictions where definitely it's a no. Don't even think of putting in an application for parole in place, because just by the nature of your conviction, it's going to get denied. Hi, good night, Suzette. Good night, Pauline. So we're going to focus on parole in place. We are going to be focusing on, unfortunately, what convictions are just going to kick you outside the bat. You're not going to benefit just because you have this conviction. So let's go through the list of crimes that are just a complete no to your parole in place application. And right now, this application itself is not on stable ground, since Texas has filed a lawsuit in order to try, and they want to kick it out. And they have been successful so far to get a 14-day stay. What happens after the 14 days? We just have to monitor. So let's look at the convictions that once you have such a conviction, if you put in an application for parole in place, it's going to get denied. So we want to save people some money so they don't waste time, right? If you have a conviction for murder, torture, rape, or sexual abuse, any application for parole in place is going to get denied. Offenses involving firearms, explosive materials, destructive devices, any conviction involving these items, you are going to get denied. If you engage in any sort of peonage, slavery, involuntary servitude, and trafficking in persons, you have such a conviction, any application by you for parole in place, it's going to get denied. If you have aggravated assault, so this does not involve like simple assault, like aggravated assault. And when you get your dispositions, and if you are in fact pleading to certain crimes, you have to check the immigration consequences of these crimes. So we're just going over the crimes that it's a definite no, that if you are trying to apply for parole in place and you have convictions for these crimes, don't waste your time. Don't put in the application. It is going to get denied, right? So offenses involving child pornography, sexual abuse, exploitation of minors, or solicitation of minors, right? That's just telling you that they took into account the whole Adam Walsh effect in deciding the parole in place is going to get denied. Crimes of domestic violence, stalking, child abuse, child neglect, or child abandonment, this is going to cause your parole in place application to get denied. What is extremely disheartening is if, and I've seen this often, you're involved in someone, you have an argument, it does not go the way how they want it. All of a sudden, the police is being called on you. All of a sudden, you're getting arrested for domestic violence. And I would encourage anyone who is in a situation where you're more likely to get arrested for domestic violence, walk it out. Go outside, walk it out. Just be very careful of escalating certain arguments. It's not worth it. And a lot of these people who get arrested, oftentimes the story that is provided to the police, it's a complete concoction. But at the end of the day, you have a conviction for a domestic violence crime. So I want to encourage, especially for, and I can't even say, but oftentimes this is what I see. Often the women will fabricate charges against the men, and now they have been arrested for a domestic violent crime. If you are involved with someone and things are not going your way, right? I have had clients where the men, they're trying to leave and the women are preventing them and they kind of push you out the way. Then here it is, you go and you say how they assaulted you. And I think if you are in a relationship, You have to know when to leave. And I find people don't know when to leave relationships and they stay. And oftentimes, this may result in a criminal conviction for you. So you have to know your partner. You have to know whether this relationship is going to lead to a 911 call. It's not worth it. If you're in a relationship, and anytime I tell anybody this, the day you're in a relationship, take up the phone and call the police on the person that you are involved with. This is not the relationship for you. You have to know when to leave. And I find people do not know. They think it's going to get better. You think you're going to change the person. You meet that person where they're at. You're not Jesus Christ. You're not Moses. You can't part a Red Sea. So if it is that you're in a relationship and you see it's going to escalate and it's going to get violent, I am encouraging you, walk away. There is over 1 billion people on this earth. I don't think anyone is special enough where you're going to stay in a relationship and it becomes abusive, or you're going to stay in a relationship where you're going to get a criminal record. It's not worth it. You have to understand that these things, it affects your ability, not just as immigrants to have immigration consequences, but it affects certain jobs, especially when you work with the city or the state, or you work in the health field. So you're involved with someone and all of a sudden police is involved in your relationship. And I want you to just take a step back, put yourself in the shoes of the reasonable man. Is this relationship really worth it? There are certain arrests that need not occur, and you really need to know when to leave a relationship. And domestic violence just does not only involve your partner. It can be your mother-in-law. It can be a relative that is within that family unit that creates that domestic violence type of situation. So I can't encourage people enough. You must know when to move away from nonsense. Now, more serious than not is the last offense, which is listed, which is a controlled substance offense. A lot of people believe that marijuana is legal when it comes to immigration. It is not. It is still on the controlled substance offense list, right? So I want to encourage you, I don't want you to think that New York right now on the dispositions, you'll see if you had a controlled substance offense where the controlled substance is marijuana. For most of these offenses, you will see that it has been vacated, dismissed, and sealed, right? But you're still walking in a disposition that says pled guilty. Your admission to the elements of a crime is still a conviction for immigration. So I am just going to encourage you. Marijuana is not off the controlled substance offense list, right? And depending on the weight of the marijuana, because it's only one single act of possession that's forgivable, right? 30 grams or less. You have any other charge, any other weight, more than one crime, guess what? You can't get a waiver. So I'm just encouraging people, you're looking at benefits, especially as immigrants, where you need a favorable exercise of discretion. These offenses, you had crossed the border, because parole in place is really for people who have no proof of their entry. They cannot show they were inspected and they're admitted, or that they had some sort of parole to enter the country. So you have people who are in the United States and they are stuck in a vacuum for years. We had the provisional waiver that came out, but then you had people who did not want to go back to their embassies to interview. They didn't, the uncertainty that has been created. And I had a client who nearly had her sister encourage her not to go when her provisional waiver was approved. And thank God she listened to me. So she's a green card holder today. But a lot of people do not want to go outside. They don't want to go and interview at the embassy just in case something arises. So they become very scared. So this really will act as a blessing for people who don't want to leave, who don't have proof of their entry, and they can adjust their status here. The parole in place is for a 3-year period. But one of the limitations, they're looking, and I'll tell you this, because in everything you have the scammer, right? Everything. Now, the issue is they're going to be looking hard for people who are applying for this marriage-based parole in place. They are going to be going through the documents with a high degree of scrutiny, looking for marriage fraud, right? So remember, you have to do your continuous presence. You have to show you've been here for 10 years, right? And you got married as of, I believe it was June 17, 2024. So they're going to be looking at this whole issue of whether it is in fact a good faith marriage to determine whether or not you should benefit from this parole in place. So for anyone who has the grand idea that they're going to just do a microwave marriage to get this benefit, it's not going to work out for you, because they are going to be examining these documents to see whether or not people are doing a fake marriage to get the parole in place. And I would urge anyone who is contemplating this, be very careful. And I caution you against this, because they have already set up where they're going to be scrutinizing for marriage fraud. All right. So for people who have pending criminal charges, right? If you have pending criminal charges, do not put in this application. Wait. And this is something that I can tell you. I have had clients who come in with pending criminal charges, and I have encouraged them, go and resolve your criminal issue before we put in any application. I don't know how your criminal case is going to play out. And if it plays out in such a manner that it has adverse immigration consequences, then guess what? You're stuck. So if it is that you have a pending criminal case, then I'm going to encourage you, don't put in this application, right? Wait until your criminal case is resolved and then you put it in. Bear with me, because I think I see a comment and I want to respond to it. So just bear with me 1 second. All right. So Pauline says, good night, Miss Osbourne, and the Legally Speaking family. So Sunshine says, hi, Miss Osbourne. Just got YouTube notification. Are you on evenings? No, I just did evening for this evening. Now, I want to encourage. This is where you want to encourage, especially the young children, to just avoid getting involved with law enforcement. It's not worth it, you know. You don't want a conviction to hamper you. Let's even take immigration out of it. When you want to apply for certain jobs, you don't want this conviction to stop your progress. It's not worth it, right? All right. So if you have a pending charge, I'm going to encourage you, guess what? You put in this application, you have a pending charge, the case is not resolved, or worse, it's resolved but not in your favor, and you have this application now, the door is just open. And even though it is not their intention to issue a notice to appear to send you for removal proceedings, right? When you put in this application, let's say you put it in, it gets denied. It is not their intention to send you for removal proceedings. However, if there is a law enforcement issue, now you're a priority because now you have a criminal record, right? Where if it has negative immigration consequences, yeah, you are going to be a priority for removal. So just careful with the application that you are seeking to put in. Once again, if you have been convicted of a felony, do not put in the application for a parole in place. Put it down. Do not. This application is totally online. There's no paper application. Don't fill it out if you have a felony. You're wasting that money. I believe it's $580. You're going to waste your filing fee. There are no refunds. When you submit this application, the fact that your case gets denied, your application was processed. So if it is that you do have a felony, do not put in this application, right? Now, we just went over the convictions that for crimes that it's a definite no. Excluding minor traffic offenses, yeah. All other criminal convictions, there is a presumption of ineligibility, right? And you have to overcome this presumption. So the burden is going to be on you. It's never on the government. So they're placing the burden on you for you to convince them with your conviction, even though it's not one of the crimes that it's a definite no. That burden still lies on you, right? Even if, and what is sad about this application is, even if the criminal conviction doesn't have any negative immigration consequences, it still creates a presumption that you're ineligible for this. And the burden goes on you to overcome this presumption. So this is nearly like applying for a waiver, right? Because you're seeking a favorable exercise of this discretion, and they've totally placed this on you. You are going to have to show why it is, since you got arrested, yeah? I'm going to go into the fact that you don't even have to be convicted. We're going to go later into the fact. I know this is a 1-hour program, so I'm really just going to try and condense it. But I think this is very unfair that if the conviction doesn't have an immigration consequence, it's just unfair that you're going to put the burden on the immigrant to convince the government, where it has absolutely no immigration consequences, why you should still get the parole in place. If it has no immigration consequences, then guess what? It's not going to affect the green card. The ultimate purpose of this application is to allow people who had no proof of entry to now get the ability to adjust. So if the ultimate aim is really to get the green card and your conviction has no negative ramifications for your green card, then really you should not be burdened as to why you should get this parole in place. Yet still, they have put an additional burden on the immigrant to convince them why you should get the parole in place. And I think it's so unfair. I really do. All right. Now, another issue is, if it is that even though, right, if they have determined that you are a threat to public safety, national security, or you're a border security concern, right, they're not going to grant the parole in place. So, national security, you're a threat to the United States, right? Public safety is really your criminal convictions, right? And People who are coming in after November 1st, 2020, except for the stepchildren, right? You're going to be disqualified from the parole in place if it is that you are a border security concern, right? And if this really is to benefit people, but then again, if you're coming in after November 1st, 2020, you really can't benefit from this. How are you going to show 10 years of physical presence? November 1st, 2020, this November will make that 4 years. You don't even meet the criteria. You still have to maintain that 10-year physical presence. It is required, you know? So I'm not even sure why, because it goes without saying, just to be eligible for this, you have to have 10 years physical presence. So I don't think anyone who is just jumping across the border would have lost their mind to put in this application. It wouldn't even have gotten approved because you don't have the 10 years, right? And anyone who is putting in an application for them, once, of course, their attorney or BIA rep would have seen this and told them that they don't even qualify in the first place, right? Now, here's the issue I have with this. And it is a concern for me because I don't see the purpose of this. Well, what you have to understand with immigration is simply this. You see, when it comes to criminal convictions, if you, as the accused, when questioned concerning the crime, you go ahead and you admit to the elements of the crime, even though your disposition goes not guilty, but you go in that interview with the officer and you admit to the elements of the crime, that's a conviction for them. And this is why you have to be so careful, because that burden now, because you have the crimes, you dealt with the crimes earlier, that is a definite no. You have this crime, don't even waste your time. The only people who really escape is people with traffic offenses, you know? But you have the other crimes that they are not traffic and it's not a definite no. But guess what? There's a presumption that you're ineligible and you have to overcome that burden. So that burden now lies on the immigrant to convince the government that they should get this parole in place. Even though my crime has no negative immigration consequences, even though my crime is not a definite no, I'm stuck with a presumption. So you still have to be very careful what you say, because what you say can prevent you from getting this discretionary relief, right? So it doesn't matter that your conviction was dismissed. You still have to prove the fact that you were arrested and the fact that you were charged. If you were arrested and let's say you got a nolle prosecute, right? Which is the DA decides they're not prosecuting. You have nothing to worry about. But let's say you are charged. Once you have been charged, then there is a presumption, once it's not a little traffic offense, that you're ineligible. So you now are forced to convince them. So they don't care whether your conviction was dismissed. This is so unfair. They don't care whether it was expunged. And I can see with the expunged, because you do have some guilty pleas that get expunged, probably because of the longevity in terms the crime was committed so long ago. You know, some states will expunge it. But things like crimes where the conviction has been vacated. So you're arrested, you are charged, and you were successful enough to vacate the conviction. The burden still lies on you to prove to them why it is that you must overcome this presumption of being ineligible. Yeah. They don't care if the crime was pardoned, they don't care if it was deferred, annulled, invalidated, withheld, or sealed. The burden still lies on you because there is a presumption that you are, in fact, ineligible. I think this is just wrong. Yeah. For cases which have been dismissed, this should not even be there. But like I said, what you say becomes relevant. Because if it is that in singing like a bird, you hang yourself, that's all they need. Nobody cares that you have this disposition that says not guilty, which is crazy because it's like, am I being retried again? So this is why they want a statement from you. You have to provide a statement along with other factors that they will take into account. This is complete madness. Certain things they look at is the nature of the underlying offense. They look at the age, your age at the time of when you are arrested, little things like that. Your entire criminal history comes into play. So for some people who are career criminals, this application is not really going to bode well for you. Yeah, because all of that is going to be taken. It is a discretionary relief. And if you are a career criminal, I can guarantee you're not going to get a favorable exercise of discretion. You're damn if you do, you're damn if you don't. Yeah. The only people who seem to be in a very good position with this is people who have traffic offenses or you have no criminal history at all. Otherwise, you're going to have a burden provided that your crime is just like not a straightforward no. Once you have a conviction for a crime where it's a definite no, don't waste your monies. They're not going to approve it. If you have a felony, don't put in this application, right? So if you're just joining us, welcome. We are at a later time today, and it's just for today. Next Sunday, we will be back at 9 o'clock. You're tuning in to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. If you have a question, we just have a few more minutes, I believe, left. You're welcome to call 718-502-9137 and I'll answer your question to the best of my ability. All right. This is just, I can't get over the fact that you don't even have a conviction to backside. But the fact that you were arrested, the fact that you went and you faced a judge, now you sit down and you're going to be writing this nice little statement as to why you should get a favorable exercise of discretion. No, this is completely, I'm sorry, this is unnecessary. If it is a crime that has immigration consequences, absolutely. I see the reason to dig. But for a crime that doesn't have any immigration consequence, why are you going to put the people them through this? This makes no sense. All right. It is what it is. If for the less serious crimes, the burden is not so heavy. But if this is a serious crime, nobody cares that the case was dismissed. You have to give a statement, you have to prove why they should look past the fact that you were arrested and charged. Who cares that it was dismissed, it was vacated, it was annulled? Nobody cares. You still have to give a statement. This is so wrong. It's wrong. All right. Juvenile delinquencies. For New York, offenses or youthful offender offenses has no immigration consequences. But for parole in place, it becomes an issue. So, as a New Yorker, a New York immigrant, you don't need parole in place. You probably have proof of your entry. You committed a crime as a youthful offender and you get a youthful offender disposition. I'll see dispositions and I'm like, and then I see it's a youthful offender, I'm like, just get saved right there. But it doesn't work like that for this parole in place. The fact that it's a youthful offender disposition, that does not save you with this application. You still have the same burden for people who committed crimes as adults. Sort of don't think that you did a youthful offender, I'm in New York, I'm safe, because this does not have any immigration consequences. If you need parole in place, the burden goes on you. So you have this hurdle to remove the presumption that you are ineligible. This is what people are facing with this parole in place. How much of a benefit is this really? And who is going to, if, like I said, if you have no criminal offenses, you're fine. Or if you just have like simple traffic offenses, you're fine. And for people who they got, arrested for these simple traffic offenses, it's not a problem. But if you have a crime, which is just ridiculous, if it has no immigration consequences when you're applying for the green card, but it's not a problem for the parole in place. Make that make sense. Where the whole aim of the parole in place is to allow you to get the green card. So how does that make sense? By the time I'm ready to apply for the green card, this arrest has no immigration consequences. But in order to get to the green card, I need my parole in place application to be approved. To get my parole in place application, to get it approved, I have to rebut the presumption of my ineligibility for a crime that has no consequences for the green card. Make that make sense? Where the whole purpose is that this parole in place is going to lead me to the road to get a green card. This was unnecessary. I don't know who thought of this. This is where immigrants become and you have the conspiracy theory. Is this just really a basis to collect information? And these are the things that will scare people and they will absolutely not apply. It's like you have to get screened. Simple. For a crime that has absolutely no immigration consequences. How is this possible? Yeah, I can't. It makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. And it's unfortunate. That's how I see it. I see it as very unfortunate that you're going to put people through hurdles. And if you're writing this statement, you have to be very careful as to what you're putting down on paper, right? You have to be so careful because that very statement can sink you. And I want to encourage anyone who has had a criminal conviction, just really be just be very careful as to what it is that you're going to look to write and provide information concerning your criminal convictions. Like I said, your case get dismissed. Who cares if you go ahead and in your statement, you say the wrong thing? It's going to be a disaster for you because that statement, you are going to more likely than not swear. Because anyone who has been in an interview and they take a statement from you, right? And when my clients give statements, sometimes I'll refuse to give statements But when I do, it's because I know it's not going to harm them, right? So they give the statement, but that statement is done under penalty of perjury. And then a supervisor is called into the room because they need a witness. It's not a supervisor, it's probably another officer. So they need a witness for that statement. So I just wanted to be very careful as to what statements you're giving. Everything it forms part of your record, right? If you have a record that's going to go into immigration court, then we have an issue here because now this is part of the record of proceedings. And if you're in court, the person on the other side is going to be your adversary. So just like be very careful, like what you are, what statements you're giving, what you're signing off, what you're swearing to, right? Any court proceedings, immigration or not, when you give a statement, that statement can be used against, especially for like a perjury charge. It's this is not a game here. And oftentimes where you see this most, or where I see it most, is in the divorce proceedings. Because guess what? There's nothing like in your divorce cases. Here it is, we're coming out with income that people never report. And now the judge is referring you to the IRS. Nobody wants that. And oftentimes this is something that causes people to settle their case because who wants that drama? Yeah. All right. I think I see someone says, um, okay. So Alan is saying thanks for the timely info. Yeah, I mean, this is the purpose of the show to keep our community informed. This is a medium to get information out, and so that people can be blessed with the information. Who wants to use it, it's there, right? Oftentimes before, we have to be very grateful for these platforms where we can put forth information for our community, because I think knowledge is something that it's not often shared. And it just amazes me where people like to keep information. This information that will help our community. Yeah. And it will allow someone from making a mistake. If we can, whether it's me by providing, legal information to benefit, or just us as a community benefiting, or a neighbor, a family member, somebody, so we can bless someone with information or resources that they never had before. I think we need to do so as a community. Just my simple take. All right. So next week I will be on at 9, next Sunday in the morning, right? All right. So that's enough of me taking up your night. Stay blessed, stay peaceful, stay happy, no stress, right? All right, we're fighting hypertension here. All right, darlings, take care. Have a wonderful Sunday and spend whatever time you have. It's now back to school. All of these kids are out. The traffic is horrendous, but it is what it is. Stay safe. Take care. Bye.